26-point lead blown by the 76ers. They fall against the Celtics 118-110. This team cannot keep a lead. Let's break it all down.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On 76ers. We're your host, Keith Pompey, Sixers beat writer. I'm Kayla Santiago, silent reporter for the Delaware Blue Coats, the Philadelphia 76ers NBA G League team. If you're watching us on YouTube or listening wherever you listen to podcasts, you can also check us out on the free daily newsletter. That's on lockedondaily.com to get all of your Sixers fix. You're definitely going to want to check that out as the trade deadline is looming just a few days away. It's been crazy in the NBA. You never know what can happen. So make sure you check us out on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, and on lockedondaily.com. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. What we're going to discuss here today in this episode is the 76ers blow a 26-point lead. Tyrese Maxey continues to do it all. And what the 76ers have to say about the crazy trades going down in the NBA currently? Now, my takeaway is that the 76ers have throughout this season blown leads at the end of games. We saw it with the Pelicans throughout. We saw it even with the Wizards. Now they ended up coming out on top in that game. The 76ers were severely undermanned. I couldn't believe when I saw the score that they were even up by 26. But Keith, then Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown get to them. They combined for 25 of the 31 scored in that fourth quarter. What went wrong in the fourth?
You know, they actually outscored them 38-16, but I think the problem started before then. You know, there was a point where I believe they ended the game on they ended the third quarter on a 16-4 run, right? So, you know, you add that, and then they went on something like a 21-5 run to start the fourth. So what really happened was that, you know, Boston made some adjustments. They started when Maxey was in there. They started blitzing him. You know, Maxey, he didn't recognize things, or he felt like he could dribble through it like he did in the past, and he struggled a little bit with that. And what that did is that led to you know, some turnovers that led to guys rushing shots. And let's face it, I mean, you got a couple guys now who are role players who now the Sixers are dependent on them in clutch time against a dominant team to make shots. And they're just not right there. And like I said, at first, they ended the third quarter. Let me make sure I get it 100% right. They ended the third quarter with a 16-4 run, and they started the fourth quarter with a 21-6 run. So what they did is they outscored them 52-20 over the final 14 minutes and 42 seconds. And like Kayla, if we're going to be real, this was going to be a great win for the Sixers, right?
Yeah.
But you knew that the Boston Celtics were going to make a run. And they gradually kept chipping. And at one point, the 76ers were knocking down shots. So it kind of like they would get like a clutch basket here and there, but then all of a sudden they start missing those shots. I mean, look about it. Look at this. In the fourth quarter, the Boston Celtics shot 68.2%. They made 8 of 12 threes, right? Tatum had 13 of those points on 5 for 7 shooting. The Sixers, meanwhile, shot 5 for 18 from the field and 1 for 7 from 3. And they had 2 costly turnovers. And that was the game right there.
And I didn't think the 76ers were going to win this game. They go in severely undermanned. Already, you know, they don't have Caleb Marr, they don't have Joel Embiid, Paul George, and then Eric Gordon. And I know that's a name that people have said, okay, well, Eric Gordon, but he's been playing well for the Philadelphia 76ers lately. So when you see him on the injury report too, you kind of look at it and say, okay, the Sixers are severely undermanned. Tyrese Maxey does his thing yet again. We'll get to that later on. But, it was really the game plan. We talk about the offensive numbers of the Boston Celtics, how they were able to shoot really well, especially late down the stretch. And I do agree with you in the sense that they were going to have theirs. At some point in this game, they weren't going to go down and lose and just completely collapse. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, those guys are going to figure it out. It's the Boston Celtics we're talking about right now. But you force Maxey into a little bit of that double team. He was not great in that fourth quarter, 2 points, 0 for 4 shooting from the field as well in that period. So you double him on the perimeter, and the 76ers, outside of that, they just didn't have enough last night. And when you look at it against the Boston Celtics, as you said, Keith, this would have been a really, really, really good win and a surprising one at that of the Philadelphia 76ers come out on top. They have blown leads in the past against bad teams and the Pelicans and the Wizards, but this is a squad in the Boston Celtics where if you give them any leg up, if you give them even a small chance at coming back, they're going to run for it. And that's exactly what Boston was able to do, coming out on top 118 to 110. I think the Celtics, either way, we're going to come out on top in this game. The 76ers just severely undermanned, and this was just not their night last night.
Now the Sixers had a great opportunity to get the upset, but it's just like to a point. Like when you look at, the problem is in the fourth quarter, when they started off, you know, um, they started the fourth quarter off with the backcourt of Kyle Lowry and Reggie Jackson. They played like 2 minutes and 38 seconds. In those 2 minutes and 38 seconds, the Sixers were outscored by 6 points, right? We look at it, Reggie was 0 for 3, 0 for 2 on threes. Kyle Lowry didn't get a shot attempt, but what he did get was a foul. And then you have Adem Bona was on the floor for 3 minutes and 19 seconds, and he was a -8 in that quarter. So, we look at it and we talk about these bench points. They had 8 points compared to 2 by the Sixers, and all three of those guys struggled, right? So, and then you look at the Maxey thing. Maxey did admit that he was probably held on the ball a little bit too soon, because if he would have released it, then they could have swung the ball, kept swinging it, getting it to other people. The problem is Yabu Yabusele played 8 minutes and 41 seconds in the fourth quarter. He only had one shot attempt. You can't have one shot attempt in the fourth quarter when you are the second leading scorer of the game, right? But Kelly, tried to will him. He had 5 shots. Maxey had 4. But Yabu, you had Ricky Council, you had Justin Edwards, you had Reggie Jackson getting more shot attempts than Yabu in the fourth quarter. That just can't happen. And I think when Tyrese is saying, maybe I should have gotten rid of the ball a little quicker, those are the things that he's probably talking about, because it would have been better opportunities for Yabu.
Yeah, Gershon Yabusele just having a career high as of late, too. He has shown up consistently. That just can't happen when you're looking at trying to go out there and steal a big win and try not to go back to the last time they won 4 straight prior to them just winning 4 straight and then falling to the Nuggets. They went 2-10. The 76ers trying to avoid that. They do lose 2 back-to-backs, though. When you look at it, too, you mentioned Lowry and Jackson in that fourth quarter. Overall, Reggie Jackson, a -14. Kyle Lowry, a -10 as well. Once again, the 76ers, they've been undermanned all point at this season, it seems like, but they were severely undermanned, not having Eric Gordon out there as well, who's been playing pretty good for them too. The 76ers really almost had this game, but then we talk about the bench points. Also, Sam Hauser on the other side for Boston. He had 12 points, 2 big threes in the final frame as well. So the Celtics doing their thing. This is a team that you look at, another year of them just being a great squad. They're talked about as the top of the Eastern Conference, them and the Cavs right now. And the 76ers, Keith, I want to ask you this before we get into Tyrese Maxey's performance, because he continues to do well, admitting maybe he shouldn't have held on to the ball that long. But the 76ers last time they beat the Celtics, clearly Embiid is in the lineup. He had 27 points. Caleb Martin also had 7 3-pointers in that contest. The 76ers, we're not going to dive too much deep into this, but I just want to get your thoughts before we send things to break. They win 4 straight the last time. They go 2-10. What do you take from the Celtics game? Do you think they go back to that 2-10 mark, or do you feel a little bit more confident in this team with the play of Tyrese Maxey and others?
unfortunately, you can't take anything from it. I mean,
Mm,
just because, first of all, the trade deadline is coming up in
yeah.
what, 3 days, so we don't even
Hmm.
know who's going to be on the team.
That's true.
Secondly, even if they didn't have a trade deadline, you right now you don't even like know who's going to be healthy. I mean, the one thing we do know is this was the 15th game that Joel Embiid has missed,
Hmm.
right? This was what, the 18th game, 15th game that Joel Embiid has missed consecutively, right? It was the 18th game of the season that Paul George has missed, the 17th game of the season that Caleb Martin has missed, the 12th in a row. So, when you have that type of lack of continuity, it's hard to predict what's going to happen, the next 2 weeks, unfortunately for the 76ers.
And you're right. We don't know what's going to happen. In just a few days from now, we could be having a very much different conversation because we'll talk about it later in the show. But the trade deadline has been one of the craziest I have ever witnessed, especially what happened a few nights ago between the Mavericks and the Lakers. We'll get to that later on. But when we come back, we are going to talk about Tyrese Maxey. Yes, he alluded to the decision making there at the end, but Tyrese Maxey has been balling out, and this is what everybody wanted to see from him earlier in the season that he is now able to do. We will touch on that in just a moment right here on Locked On 76ers. And of course, we have to tell you about Game Time. Looking for tickets to your next big event. It just doesn't have to be sports. It can also be a concert, a comedy show, and of course, a sports game as well. Finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through the endless ticket listings. And I know sometimes you're just trying to get to good tickets. You don't have a lot of time to look. You just need them. Maybe it's last minute, or maybe you're trying to plan an event. Game Time Picks is the perfect things to do. So I've been using Game Time Picks for a while now, and here's why I love it. It makes it super simple to find everything. I'm a busy gal, and it's nice, very, very nice when I'm able to go into Game Time. I just have a little bit of filter, and it's able to tell me exactly what I want and I need at the best price possible as well. The seat view features is a game changer. Before I even hit buy, I can see exactly what my seat will look like in the venue. And it is so reassuring because there's been times on other apps that I've gone to the venue and that ticket that I bought, maybe it wasn't exactly where I thought it would be either. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, use code and redeem code Locked On NBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. What time is it? It is game time. All right. Tyrese Maxey has been on a tear, and I know the 76ers just dropped two straight, but we can't not talk about Tyrese Maxey. So, Tyrese Maxey, 23 points in that first half of action. Clearly, the second half, not up to his standards, I'm sure he would say, but it's his fifth straight 30-point game and 14th consecutive 28 or more. Keith, what is clicking for Tyrese Maxey right now? Is it the comfortability, the chemistry? Because we know he's a ball player, but this is the Tyrese Maxey we've kind of been waiting for him to develop into all season long. There's been a lot going on with the injuries, everything in between. What is it that is working for Tyrese Maxey so well? Because he is putting up fantastic numbers, maybe a little bit of a chip on his shoulder too, not making that All-Star game. What are your thoughts?
I think what's getting into him is basically, when you don't have Joel and PG playing, you have to be a little bit more offensive. And, before I felt like he early on in the season, sometimes you get, all of a sudden I'm a max player, I'm an all-star, and you try to press a little bit. I think like right now, he's just back in his comfort level, but at the same time, he knows that, okay, I got to get Paul involved. Okay, I got to get Embiid involved when they're
Mm-hmm.
playing. But right about now, the 76ers' best chance to win is by me scoring a lot of points. And at the same time, I can, do a little bit of things to get Yabu and Kelly, but for the most part, it's all about me, and I have to will this team to win. So, he welcomed the challenge of carrying the team on the back, but instead, in the past, he was pressing and doing it, and he's not now. So that's what it is. And then let's face it, Tyrese has gotten better. Like,
Yeah.
beforehand, Tyrese teams would try to. They knew that he was comfortable going a certain way, so they would do a lot of different things and mix it up and blend it and force him to go in the opposite direction. He's so fast nowadays that he's getting to spots before teams can set up, and he's getting to the basket. So those are that's what's really gotten into him. Now, he might be a little disappointed by going 0 for 4 in that fourth quarter, but you are right. I mean, 5 consecutive games of 30 points or more. And not only that, let's face it, this is the one thing that people aren't talking about. The last game that they played, when they played on Friday, he had 42 points against the Denver Nuggets.
Mhm.
Tyrese Maxey now has 9 40 or more point games. He's second in team history behind Allen Iverson and getting and doing that before you turn 25. So that's a major feat. He surpassed Charles Barkley. So when you talk about what's getting into him, I mean, he's turning into the player that everybody or Nick Nurse thought he would be. Because I ain't gonna say, like, I don't think a lot of people thought he was going to be a superstar, but
Mhm.
it looked like he's ascending to be that.
Yeah, Sixers organization front office. Don't get any ideas like the Mavs did with Luka, please, because Tyrese Maxey is definitely the future of the Philadelphia 76ers. But you look at it, 23 points in the first half to help put the Sixers up by 23. You alluded to his numbers in that fourth quarter as well. I kind of want to see Tyrese Maxey continue to look for those players that he knows can go out there and deliver. You allude to it, him going to Lowry and Reggie Jackson, and those are players that you don't always want to see Tyrese Maxey go to. And I think with the consistency or the lack of consistency, rather, of not having the same players, Yabusele has been consistent, but you're trying to get other guys involved. This time around, I kind of wanted to see the two-man game, a little bit of him and Gershon Yabusele. But other than that, I mean, Tyrese Maxey has been a force to be reckoned with, especially in these last 6 to 7 games for the Philadelphia 76ers. And I think it's huge for the organization to realize that in 2 3 years, maybe even sooner, this might be Tyrese Maxey's team. And he's playing like it right now. I don't think that's what he has in the back of his mind. I think Tyrese Maxey is truly just trying to go out there and win this team some games. He said it in the post-game press conference as well. But Keith, I also like that he holds himself accountable, saying, I did that there in the fourth quarter and I could have done things differently. And maybe if I did, we could have came out with a win, not quoting his exact words there. But at the same time, I do think that's important for him to understand and knowing going forward that if you're in that situation, those are wins that maybe you could sneak out because they possibly could have last night against the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, they could have. I mean, because in the second half, he had 11 points in the second half, but
Mm-hmm.
he shot 2 for 7. So,
Good
you know what
point.
I mean? So that's not the best. Now, again, in the third quarter, that means he was 2 for 3. That's not bad. But at the same time, when you have a guy who is basically attacking in the first half, you expect him to have more than 3 shots. And I get it, but you do expect him to get more than 3 shots in that third quarter just because of the way that he's been, scoring at will. But again, they guarded him a little bit differently. They blitzed him, they took the ball out of his hands, and they were basically saying, you know what? We're going to leave it up to like guys like Kelly Oubre, Gershon, to beat us, and we're going to take the ball out of Tyrese's hands.
I think Max needs to get used to that as well because not everybody's going to be able to game plan on the fly like the Celtics are. They're a very good team, but a lot of teams are going to be prepared to do that to Tyrese Maxey, seeing what worked against Boston defensively to be able to do that to Tyrese in the fourth quarter, kind of isolate him a bit. Maxey needs to kind of expect that now because he is the top player for this team and he's been performing very, very well for the Philadelphia 76ers. 34 points last night alongside 6 assists. Once again, 76ers front office, don't get any ideas of a young superstar here for the Philadelphia 76ers. Keep him in the city of brotherly love. We're going to talk about some of the trades that have been happening in the NBA, but how the Sixers players are kind of reacting to it, because it's been a crazy 48 hours here in the National Basketball Association. So don't go anywhere. We'll touch on that when we get back here on Locked On 76ers. Before we get back to the action, we have to tell you about Prize Picks. Basketball season is here. It's heating up. It's getting crazy, as we've touched on throughout the NBA trade deadline coming up. And there's no better way to get in the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in award-winning, Prize Picks makes it easy and fun to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Here's how it works. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. And if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. This week, I'm looking at the board and selecting more for Jason Tatum on points and more for Luka Doncic on assists. The best part, Prize Picks keeps it simple. You can set your lineup in less than 60 seconds, and their fast, secure withdrawals mean you get paid quickly when you win. Plus, their Taco Tuesday promo gives you discounted player projections for even more value. Check out the promos to add to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, make sure you run your game. Oh my goodness. The last 48, 24 plus hours have been crazy in the NBA. Luka Doncic is no longer the Dallas Mavericks. I have no idea what the Mavericks front office is doing. They say they want Anthony Davis to win now. We'll see how that works out. Luka is now a Laker. And then, just coming out today as well, Wemby and Aaron Fox now partnering over there with the Spurs. But Keith, Gershon Yabusele had some things to say about the latest trades, the trade deadline in general. What were his thoughts on kind of just the world of NBA trade deadline coming up very shortly?
I mean, just to paraphrase from him is paraphrase him is it's kind of like, you know what, when you see a trade like that happen, anybody, it lets you know that anyone can be traded. But a lot of people were talking about how, initially when the trade happened, I mean, even myself, like, you see it happening and you think like, is this like wrong? Like, is this a parody? Is someone trolling? This and that. And that's what they talked about. But the crazy part is like for Yabu, he's a guy that, let's face it, the New York Knicks inquired about him. The Boston Celtics also inquired about him. So there are some teams that have expressed interest in him. And it's one of those things where, he talked about like, hey, if Luka get traded, then that makes a lot of us expendable or a lot of us good. I'm not untouchable. So, but he did say that he wants to stay here. But at the same time, you look at these guys, you look at Luka, you look at De'Aaron Fox getting traded yesterday as well. So it's been a lot of moves happening. And right now we have to see what the Sixers are going to do because of that.
I'm really curious, and I do think that Gershon Yabusele is just a really good piece for a lot of different teams right now, and his market value just keeps going up and up and up because he's been performing so consistently. He's one of the more consistent players, really outside of Tyrese Maxey for the Philadelphia 76ers all season. Just imagine maybe what he could do on a team that has a little bit more players playing consistently. So I think if you're in the NBA right now and you're looking for a piece to maybe come off your bench, I do think that Gershon Yabusele is a good piece. Do I want him to leave the 76ers by any means? No, but I don't think the 76ers are in a place where they can say, oh, we'll just keep this team. We'll see what happens. Do I think they're pressured to move anybody off this team? That I don't know, because I don't realistically see if they see themselves going anywhere this year with the current team that they have. So we're going to wait and see. And it's interesting because we've had this conversation of anybody being traded, and we're going to touch on this a little bit more tomorrow. A lot of the things that I'm seeing out there is, What about Joel Embiid? Things like that. And what I will say is that Gershon Yabusele right now might be more marketable in terms of people wanting to get him because you don't have to pay him a lot than Joel Embiid is right now. Joel Embiid just getting that extension, of course. In addition, he hasn't played basketball. He's getting older. He's not young. He's not like a Luka where you still have so many more years of him being able to create a dynasty. To me, Joel Embiid is not marketable or valuable at all at this point for really any team looking throughout the NBA. Now, maybe teams look at him and say, okay, let him sit a year. And after that, I don't think the 76ers get rid of him, but I think Gershon, he's a player that definitely NBA teams can be looking at. Say, I could add a solid piece to my squad coming off the bench.
Yeah, the difference is like now if you want to win a championship and you say like, okay, I could get Joel Embiid and do that, yeah. But the thing is, it comes with okay, you look at Joel right now, and don't get me wrong, like if you can get a championship and if you know Joel's going to be healthy, then you're
Right.
going to take
That's
him. Like
different. Right.
Joel would be the number one guy out there. However, the thing that scares you is he still has 4 years left on his contract, and he's only played 13 games this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you assume as he gets older, it's going to get worse for him. The thing about Yabu, and the thing that's really in the thing to look into is in a perfect world, the 76ers wouldn't even consider trading him. They just
Right.
wouldn't. Because he's a guy who can play multiple positions for him, a guy who's been, as you said, the second most valuable player on the team, consistency wise, besides Tyrese Maxey. But here's where the problem lies. They don't have his bird rights. Right now, they're close to $11 million over the luxury tax. So, which means is they don't have the cap space to get him if they don't create some space this off season. And with that being said, since they don't have his bird rights, the deal that they will offer him is not going to be any more enticing than it would be that another team. And even if and if they did have his bird rights, they could be over the cap. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, since they had his right, they can add his salary. So let's just say whatever the Sixers have to offer, another team could say, "Well, look, we're going to give you $5 million more." Then Gershon is going to have to
Yeah.
say, "Well, I think maybe I'll take it." So what
It's not
that does
real.
is it puts the Sixers, a team whose first round pick is top six protected, and they don't have a second round pick. It puts them in a position where they say, "Well, you know what? I'll give you Gershon for maybe 2 second round picks, right?" So, because and the reason why they're doing that is because you rather get something for him now as opposed to having him leave in the off season and you get nothing. So
Right.
that's the dilemma that the 76ers are in. But I could see them trying to do whatever they can to keep him. But but at the same time, if they feel like they can't, then I think that they would probably move.
Yeah, and
Most
thanks for him too, because he's been playing so well with this team. But at the end of the day, as he said, anybody can be traded, and it was just absolutely crazy a few days ago. Sham's really his first year as the true ESPN senior NBA insider. Of course, Woj stepping away from that position. What a trade to break! And he even tweeted after saying, "This is not fake. This is not a drill. Luka is going to the Lakers." So seriously, anything can happen. It's going to be a crazy next 3 days in the NBA as well. I do think that the 76ers, because of your reasoning, are going to ship off Gershon Yabusele. I just don't know who they're going to get that they can make this team better right now. Maybe that's what they'll look at too. Is it really worth doing all of that? Because you're not going to be able to get too much from him unless they look at some picks down the road or things like that. But it's going to be tough to see what the 76ers do. I do expect them to make a move. In some capacity, what they do, it's tough because we haven't seen this team play together. We don't really know their aspirations. Are they still going to have hopes for Joel Embiid to come back? I know they do right now, but if there's even a plan in place to shut him down at some point isn't even worth giving anybody away. So a lot can happen in the next 3 days here in the world of the NBA and the Philadelphia 76ers. We're going to touch on a lot of that tomorrow as well. The 76ers, they do fall to the Boston Celtics. They lose their second straight, 118 to 110, a tough fourth quarter for the Philadelphia 76ers. They will be back in action on Tuesday. That's February 4th at 7 p.m. against the new look Dallas Mavericks. So we will have all that action for you after the game and more NBA trade talks, things like that going on tomorrow. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we'll see you guys next time.